Hey guys, Chaps here. The last Horde strategy guide we created was well received, and seems to have helped quite a few of you with your Insane runs. That video was created fairly close to the launch of the game, so the meta hadn't quite finished evolving yet. In addition, recent updates have also caused strategies to change slightly. Because of this, we decided to put together an updated strategy guide for you all. Just as with the last guide we put together, this one's intended to show you what we feel is the most efficient way to beat Insane Horde. There are plenty of other methods, but this is what we feel is the easiest to help you get started. Due to the amount of content to cover, we're going to split this into two videos. The first one is going to cover the basics. We'll talk about the setup and fundamentals. In the next video, which should be out later this week, we'll cover some more advanced techniques. There, we'll discuss some of the more advanced tips and tricks to make your life even easier. In addition, we've created some class-based videos showing some of our recommendations for each class. Be sure to check those out linked below. First, let's talk about map selection. The maps vary in difficulty as your skill progress, but for the most part, they're similar to this. For an easy map, I would suggest Gridlock, Impact, Dry Dock, Harbor, or Dam. And then the new maps, Blood Drive and Clock Tower, probably also fall into this category. Some of the harder maps are Reclaimed, Checkout, Lift, and Fallout. The rest I'd categorize as sort of a medium difficulty. And then there's some that are kind of interesting, like Foundation would actually be a fairly easy map, but only if you have your classes upgraded. If you don't have your classes upgraded yet, Foundation can actually be fairly difficult. Once you have the map selected, you're going to need to figure out how you want to set up on the map. In the description, or on our website, we have a link to some high-res images showing our current suggested setups on each map. But here's some of the main things to look for. As has been the case in every Gears game, you want to find a longish, preferably narrow lane. Due to the way that the maps are designed, this typically is back towards one of the spawn locations. The main aspects we like about these locations are the limited access points. By funneling the enemies into a narrower area, we're better able to focus fire. One thing to keep in mind is that you don't want your lanes to be too long. Let's use Harbor and Impact as an example. Both have spawns that narrow down to a single extended lane. Impact is nice because while it's an extended lane, the entire lane is well within range to be shot by everyone. Harbor, while still an easy map with a nice lane, is a bit trickier. Because the lane extends across the entire map, you're more vulnerable to long-range fire. As I'll explain later, Deadeyes and Hail Mary boomshots or dropshot scions are the biggest threat. Besides lanes, an important aspect to keep in mind is the surrounding cover. As I just mentioned, dropshots, boomshots, and salvo rockets are a really big threat, especially on higher waves. I can't stress how many times a crossbeam has saved us from an incoming rocket, especially from a swarm-mech. The other aspect of cover, which is commonly overlooked but extremely important to keep in mind, is what we call the back wall. You're going to be backed into some area probably, so keeping the back wall in mind is very important. Maps like Dam do a great job of showing this. Imagine if we have turrets set up back here. If a boomshot, rocket, dropshot, or something comes in, overshoots, what's going to happen? It's going to hit that wall right behind us and kill us or down us. Now if we set up over on this side, it just goes right over the edge. Of course, keeping lane size, access point, and cover in mind are the most important variables, but once you've filtered through all of those, this back wall concept is a pretty nice thing to keep in mind. Okay, so now you should be all set on which map and where on the map you want to set up. So now let's talk about your classes. For maps with a single lane, we recommend running one scout. If the map has multiple routes, like Foundation, it's probably in your best interest to run 2 scouts. For card selection and more tips on the scout, check out the video linked here and in the description. The scout is the main money maker, and they're essentially just going to be running around picking up money at the end of each round. We would always recommend running one engineer. As with the scout, for tips check out the linked video. We recommend using anything to reduce the cost of turrets, fences, or decoys. For the most part, the engineer is going to be focused on fortification management. We'll get more into this later when we discuss the fortification setup. If the map has a long lane, such as Harbor, that I mentioned earlier, you should probably have a sniper. Snipers do an excellent job at taking out enemies at long range. The Deadeyes and Scions can be a real pain, so being able to take them out at a distance is really nice. Again, be sure to check out the video discussing the role of the sniper. I previously had dismissed this class as a worthless class, but it's been proving more and more useful as of late. Each run should have at least one heavy class. The heavy is probably the simplest of classes, as they're just the turret masters. The video linked about the Heavy class goes into a bit more detail about how you can be the most effective. The Heavy is great at dishing out damage on a turret, but at the same time, knowing how to effectively use your explosive weapons can go a long way. The last class is the Soldier class. They can dish out decent damage with rifles and grenades, but they're pretty much going to be on a turret the whole time because that's going to do even more damage. For this reason, the Soldier still seems like one of the more useless classes to me. The only saving grace this class has is the Hammer of Dawn Strike. What the Soldier lacks in other skills, they more than make up for with this. It's wonderful to have, especially in the endgame. While this class isn't really needed, it's nice to have to help speed things up. Alrighty, now we should be ready to start up the match. Let's talk fortifications. As I mentioned earlier, this video is all about the basics. We've got another one coming out later this week that we'll use to talk about some of the more advanced techniques, so be sure to check that out. In the last guide, we gave tips like, you should probably have this many fortifications by wave whatever. This changes greatly depending on the level of players and which map you're on, so I'm going to try to avoid that a bit in this video. Additionally, as I said previously, check out the comments or our website for links to overhead maps showing our general setup strategies. When it comes to fortifications, some classes have bonuses such as increased turret capacity that make you want to buy a turret with that class, but it simply isn't worth it. Always use the engineer to buy and upgrade fortifications. The discounts available greatly outweigh the perks from having it bought by any other class. The first thing we're going to be doing is building turrets, probably 2 of them. After that, it's probably best to build a couple of fences to block off your area. It never hurts to slow down the enemies a bit. Next, you're going to build your last 2 turrets and a weapons locker. The weapons locker is great for storing explosive weapons for the Heavy or M-bars for the sniper. So once you have all this stuff bought, you should essentially have your base blocked off by fences, 4 turrets, and 1 weapons locker. The engineer is now just going to be managing fortifications, repairing, and upgrading. Everyone else should pretty much just be on their turrets full time, with occasionally stepping off for the Heavy to shoot explosives or the sniper to take out some long-range enemies. Now that we have some of the basics of the base setup, let's talk about some of the more complex setups. Depending on the map, we might add a sentry. This is becoming more and more rare as we play because we're getting used to defending the areas ourselves. The sentries are nice, but they just chew through energy, and the energy doesn't go towards upgrading the fabricator. What we've been using a lot instead are decoys. Gridlock is an excellent example of this, and the decoys are probably what make this one of the easiest maps. Set up decoys in an area where enemies will need to run past them to get to you, but also make sure the area is open to be shot by your turrets. The enemies will rush the decoys and just be sitting ducks for you guys to open fire. Adding some additional fences around the decoys is great as well. They're going to slow down the enemies and absorb some of the damage. Once you have all this set up, if you have some spare cash, another thing that doesn't hurt is getting a 5th turret. We sometimes build one for the engineer to hop on, just in case we need the extra help, or to provide some extra damage during the boss wave. Essentially, at this point, this is your endgame. Just keep repairing and upgrading stuff until you hit level 4 Fabricator. Level 4 Fabricator is fantastic because of those level 4 turrets. They just melt through any enemies. On a side note, you are able to hit level 4 Fabricator by about wave 20. As I've said many times, be sure to check out our advanced tactics video, as one of the things we discuss is how to quickly upgrade your Fabricator level. So yeah, like I said, this is pretty much the endgame spot right here. You have all of your fortifications set, and you're just gonna sit back, shoot people, keep stuff repaired, and save up money for the sniper or hammer strikes. When it comes to fortification setup, one of the things that separates the good setups from the great ones is turret placement. Maintaining a good line of sight is important, but there's also a few other things to keep in mind. First, don't forget about the back wall concept I described previously. Next, staying reasonably close together, or at least near a teammate, will make it easier for revives. Lastly is the stagger effect. Make sure the turrets are set up in a way that an explosion on your turret won't kill or down the person next to you. We either use a line pattern, a checker pattern, or something in between. On higher waves, when a boom shot comes in and hits you, you really just want to make sure it's not taking someone else out of the fight as well. So try to stay away from walls, make sure your turrets are staggered, but still keep them close enough to each other so that you can revive each other when necessary. Lastly, we come to the boss waves. For the most part, you play these just like any other wave, though a Hammer Dawn Strike never hurts here or there. Decoys do a great job at distracting enemies, including the bosses, so it gives you even more time to focus fire. A lot of people will try to hide their decoys or something during a boss wave because they don't want it getting destroyed. But the decoys just do such an amazing job at distracting the bosses, especially things like snatchers or kestrels. It's really important just to leave the decoy out there. If it gets destroyed, it gets destroyed, but at least it gives you a lot more time to focus fire. Make sure you take out those bosses as quickly as possible. If you start getting overrun by smaller enemies, or they start getting too close, have one person switch over to focus fire on them. Essentially, these waves should play out just like the rest, with the exception of the fact that everyone's pretty much focused on one enemy. As a side note, don't forget to have the scout pick up the boss money before the wave ends. It's a large amount of energy, and it's even nicer when it's doubled. So yeah, that's pretty much going to cover the basics. Pick a map based on the difficulty you're looking for, set up in a location with nice lanes, choose classes and skills that complement each other and the playstyle, and use turrets and decoys wisely. Follow these tips and you should be well on your way to some nice successful insane runs. And as if I haven't mentioned enough times already, if you want even more detail or want to know some advanced strategies, be sure to check out our other videos. We've got our advanced guide coming out later this week, and we have our other Horde videos talking about each class and the tips and tricks we have for each of those classes. As always, likes and subs are appreciated, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter or check out our website to stay up to date with our content. And until next time, thanks for watching.